Before Chernobyl became a warning to the entire human species, it was just home. Pripyat didn't feel like a disaster waiting to happen. It felt like the future. Built in 1970, Pripyat was a model Soviet city. It had wide boulevards and schools, swimming pools, cinemas, hospitals, cafes, playgrounds. The average age was just 26 years old. Most people who lived there worked at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, just 3 kilometers away. The plant paid well, life was comfortable. People felt lucky to live there. Young couples pushed baby strollers through tree-lined streets. Teenagers went to school, then to arcades and movie theaters. Workers drank beer after long shifts. Kids rode bicycles and played hide-and-seek between apartment blocks. There was a carnival being prepared for May Day, the Soviet Union's biggest holiday. A Ferris wheel had just been installed. It was supposed to open on April 27, 1986. It never did, because on April 26, 1986, at 1:23 a.m., time ended. That night, Reactor 4 was being prepared for a safety test. Ironically, a test meant to see if the reactor could survive a power failure. The goal was simple. If the plant lost electricity, could the spinning turbines still generate enough power for emergency systems until backup generators kicked in? But everything went wrong. The reactor had a dangerous design flaw. The RBMK reactor used graphite and water in a combination that made it unstable at low power. When the operators tried to slow it down, the reactor became more dangerous instead of safer. Then human error stacked on top of bad design. The operators disabled automatic safety systems to keep the test running. They withdrew too many control rods. Power levels dropped too far. They tried to recover. At 1:23 a.m., they pressed the emergency shutdown button. That should have stopped everything. Instead, it killed the reactor. The control rods had graphite tips. When they were inserted, they caused a sudden spike in power instead of reducing it. The reactor output surged to more than 100 times its normal level. Fuel rods shattered. Water flashed into steam. Pressure exploded. A 1,000-ton steel and concrete lid was blown into the air. The reactor core was ripped open, and then the second explosion came, likely hydrogen or chemical, blasting radioactive debris into the sky. The night lit up. People in Pripyat saw a blue glow on the horizon, ionized air, caused by radiation tearing electrons from atoms. They thought it was a fire. They went outside to watch. They didn't know they were watching themselves being poisoned. Firefighters were called immediately. They arrived without radiation suits, without protection, without any idea what they were walking into. They climbed onto the burning reactor roof. They picked up pieces of black graphite with their bare hands. Pieces of the reactor core. Those chunks were giving off thousands of times the lethal radiation dose. Within minutes, their skin started to tingle, then burn, then blister. By morning, they were vomiting blood. Many of them died within weeks, not because of fire, because of radiation that destroyed their organs from the inside. Here's the most horrifying part. The Soviet government didn't evacuate Pripyat immediately. They waited. People went to work, kids went to school, families walked in parks under radioactive rain. Radiation was so intense it could be measured on the skin of people's clothes, but no warning was given. It wasn't until 36 hours later that buses arrived. Citizens were told, "You will be gone for 3 days," so they packed nothing. No pets, no photos, no heirlooms, no clothes. They never came back. Pripyat became a ghost city in one afternoon. 50,000 people abandoned their entire lives. Their food was still on tables, their toys still on floors, their laundry still hanging. They were erased. The explosion released 400 times more radiation than the Hiroshima bomb. A radioactive cloud spread across Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, and much of Europe. In Sweden, radiation alarms went off at a nuclear plant. And that's how the world learned something had happened. The Soviet Union had been lying. Over 600,000 people were sent to clean up the disaster. They were called liquidators, soldiers, miners, engineers, civilians. They shoveled radioactive debris off rooftops with their hands. They built a concrete sarcophagus over the reactor. Many were given only seconds on the roof. Any longer meant certain death. Thousands later developed cancer, heart failure, and neurological damage. They were never properly recorded. They were sacrificed. An area 30 kilometers wide was sealed off. Villages were bulldozed, animals were killed, forests were buried, but nature didn't die. It mutated, wolves returned, boars thrived, trees grew twisted and red. Without humans, wildlife reclaimed the land. Chernobyl became a radioactive wildlife preserve. The reactor is now sealed under a massive steel structure called the New Safe Confinement. Radiation still leaks. The city is still empty. Apartments stand frozen in time. Soviet posters on the walls, children's shoes on the floor, dusty television sets still facing couches. Some old residents secretly return to their homes. They would rather die in radiation than in loneliness. Chernobyl was not just an accident. It was the result of bad engineering, political lies, human arrogance, and a system that valued image over human life. One button press destroyed a city. One explosion poisoned generations. And one night turned a normal place into the most haunted land on Earth. That's it for this one. Check out my Pompeii video for more history gone wrong.